Story 1. My, 26 female, fiance, 28 male, ex-wife, 28 female, has cancer. He's moved in with her and postponed our wedding. Max and I dated for 2 years and have been engaged for 9 months, with the wedding date set for early January. We have a healthy, honest relationship, and I've never had any reason to doubt him. He and Caroline were high school sweethearts who married very young. They were both 22, right out of college. They divorced after 2 years. Max told me that they got married too quickly and didn't realize how different their relationship would be in the real world, i.e. when they were both working full-time jobs and struggling to pay rent. They split up on good terms but didn't keep in touch. He remained in our home city while she pursued a modeling career and began traveling extensively. 3 months ago, Caroline contacted Max over Facebook out of the blue, saying she was in town and wanted to meet for coffee. He agreed. Over coffee, she told him that she had recently been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. Her odds of survival were low, but she was determined to fight it through surgery and chemo. She said that all she wanted was for Max to be by her side throughout the treatment. Caroline's parents died shortly after she married Max. She has no siblings, and the rest of her family lives overseas. She described Max as the closest thing to family she has left. I absolutely sympathize with Caroline. The next day, Max had her over to our apartment, and she was completely lovely, clearly trying very hard to be optimistic even in the face of her life potentially ending before she turns 30. I feel terrible for her and for the situation that she's in, and I fully supported Max being there for her. Her first surgery was later that month. Max flew across the country. We live on the East Coast, she was on the West, and checked into a hotel a few minutes from her apartment. He's a writer, so working from his laptop is no issue. We spoke on the phone or on Skype almost every day for the 2 weeks he was over there. Caroline had her surgery at the beginning of June. Unfortunately, it was not entirely successful. Her doctors moved on to the next method, chemo. Max came home after her surgery to tell me this. He explained that Caroline's treatment plan was set to begin in July and end in late January. It would be an incredibly difficult time period for her, and she wanted him with her at all times. We can't afford to pay for a hotel until January, so he moved into her apartment, sleeping on her sofa. He's been there for the past month, and we continue to Skype, though only a couple times a week now. When we spoke yesterday, Max gently told me that based on Caroline's condition, he wouldn't feel right leaving her so close to the end of her treatment. He'd like for us to postpone the wedding until February at the very least, so that he can stay with her until her treatment is over. I'm so conflicted. I feel awful for resenting Caroline at all. She has cancer. She's suffering immensely, but the resentment is still there. I resent her for needing Max constantly holding her hand as though she has absolutely no friends of her own. I resent Max too for agreeing to this situation. We won't be seeing each other in person for months now, on top of our wedding being postponed. I don't know what to do. I have no idea how I'm supposed to feel. Right now, I'm just full of anger and guilt, and I don't know how to explain it to anyone else in my life. Edit. Everyone seems to be in agreement that this is a completely inappropriate, if incredibly sad, situation that Max isn't handling very well. I'll speak to him either tonight or tomorrow whenever we Skype next, and tell him in no uncertain terms that I want him to come home. From there, we can decide what to do, since I don't want to leave Caroline high and dry, but him living there until February is out of the question. I mean, yeah, that's a really tough situation, and, my heart goes out to pretty much everyone in it. I think probably one of the real missteps here is, it sounds like, and I might be misreading this, that Max is just kind of deciding this and telling his fiance, like, yep, this is what's gonna happen, so we gotta do this. Nope, Max, that's not how good relationships work, and that's not how a marriage works. If you want it to be healthy, you need to discuss this stuff. You need to, come to a consensus together, hey, Caroline really needs some help and everything and wants me to be there for all this time, but how does that make you feel? Is there a way that we can make something work? What do you think? I feel like from what I'm reading, that's not happening, and that's not okay. So, yeah, I gotta kind of side with the person writing this. No, I think you're justified to not want him to do all that. I don't know. Story 2. Karen tells me to stop the ride, so I did. / the day I made Karen cry. I work at an amusement park, and we have this ride called Moby Dick. The ride is 100% controlled by the operator. A couple of weeks ago, this woman and her friend came up to my ride making fun of one of the kids that were on the ride. She was saying so many hateful things about how they look. Without even looking at her, I told her to stop, and this is how it went. Me: you're literally talking about a 7-year-old like that. You need to stop or you will not be allowed on the rides. Karen: but it's true, look at them. Me: don't disrespect other guests, please. It's not okay. Karen's friend: stop, Karen, before you get us in trouble again. Karen: whatever. When the ride was finished, I started letting the next group of people in. I say, do not pull down on the bars, pick any seat you'd like, to everyone as they walk in, since pulling on the bars can break the seats over time. I let a group of young boys in before Karen's group, and they sat at the end seats. Karen marches over to the kids, yelling at them, telling them to get out of her seat and that she paid to sit at the end. Me: miss, please stop yelling at the kids or you will be removed from the ride with no refund and tickets. Karen: don't tell me. Karen's friend: stop it, Karen, just sit in the middle. She complained the whole time, walking to the middle seats and then pulled down the bar. I was thinking it was time to get a manager over, but I didn't want to bother them with her. Once I got everyone seated, I closed all the seat bars. When I was checking the seats, Karen's one was on the loose side, so I pushed it in a little to make it tighter. Karen: you're trying to kill me first. You left my seat open and now you're making it so I can't breathe. I ignore her and keep checking seats. When I finally start the ride, I slowly rock it, and Karen is screaming to take her off, so I make the ride go faster, doing full circles now. Halfway during the ride, Karen screams, "Stop the ride, you effing bee!" She wants me to stop it? Fine with me. I park the ride at the top of the ride like I do when closing, but keep the ride on. The 6 others on the ride weren't scared the ride stopped. Karen started screaming bloody murder, crying and begging to be let down. The parents watching know what she said before their kids and know what's going on and start laughing. After around 30 seconds, she's screaming and letting me down still. So I do on the fastest setting. I start the ride spinning full speed. I made the ride a little longer since all the kids were having fun. Before I opened the seats, I screamed a warning. Me: wait for the bars to be fully open and stay above your head before getting up. Stay seated. Karen pushes it up and gets up, having the bar fall back down and hit her in the head. Her friend laughs at her and gets up, walking her off the ride. The big thing for me is Karen, how are you unaware that even your friend doesn't really like you? Obviously you've somehow come to terms with the fact that nobody else likes you. You kind of live in your own little bubble, but even the friend you're with is just sick to death of you. Is that not tiring, Karen? Is it not just an exhausting and miserable existence to just know that almost no one can tolerate you? Don't you just want to be nicer? Do you not see how nicer people are usually treated? I mean, they're not treated nice by you, but most everyone else treats them pretty nice. Maybe try being like them for once. I don't know. Might work out in your favor. Story 3. How my dad conned a con man, then ruined his conning business. Years ago, shortly after I moved out, my dad decided he wanted to remodel his bathroom and hired a local contractor, who I will refer to as DB, to do it. He fixed a clogged sink for him once. From the start, my dad was extremely skeptical of contractors and did not want to get scammed. So, after they agreed on the price for labor, my dad asked him for an invoice for the cost of all the materials. He took said invoice to one of his coworkers, whose brother-in-law was a plumber or in construction or something, to look over the list of materials to see if the quote was fair. And right off the bat, DB was trying to do close to a 50% markup on the materials. So instead of paying DB's invoice, my dad just bought all the materials himself, saying he knows a guy who gives him amazing discounts. So DB doesn't get suspicious that my dad was onto his game. After 3 months, the bathroom is not close to being done, despite DB telling him it would take 2 months. My dad had to travel for work and would be gone in a week, so when he asked me to house sit, make sure DB shows up to work and does not steal crap. Right off the bat, DB tries to be all buddy-buddy with me, but I did not like the guy and just brushed him off, asking how the bathroom was coming. Over the course of the week, DB tries to upsell me on a bunch of things he said needed to be done to finish the bathroom. Most of it was electrical work, which he did not have a license for. My dad filled me in before he left about what was quoted in the labor, and there was no electrical work quoted, and I told him, no, just stick to the original quote. Once my dad came back, I filled him in on all the additional charges DB tried to tack on. He also did not show up for 3 days, saying he hurt his shoulder tripping over his cat. Then he tried to install the new ceiling light, which he was not asked to install because we had an electrician coming to install it. After a heated discussion between DB and I, he stopped installing the ceiling light and started laying tile, during which he broke a quarter of the tiles. After this debacle, my dad did some investigating and looked up DB's license and found out that not only was the license expired, it did not belong to DB. So my dad asked my brother and I to come over when he was going to confront DB about lying about his license. A very heated argument broke out when my dad refused to let DB enter the house to collect his tool and said we will bring the tools out to him. DB then threatened to press charges against me for assault when I accidentally brushed his shoulder when I was passing him in the hallway, and I refused to apologize. After the cops showed up, DB quickly tried to play the victim, but the cops told DB to collect his tools and leave. The bathroom was still unfinished, but my dad did not have to pay DB for his 3 months of labor and used that money to hire real contractors to finish the bathroom. It only took them a week and a half to finish. After this, my dad contacted the local news to tell them about DB being a con man. A few months later, the news did an investigative story about him, and they found other people DB scammed, where DB would start work on their bathroom, but once he got paid, he would cut and run, leaving the bathroom unfinished and stealing all the materials. The news then set up a sting for DB and exposed him for being a con man, and he was arrested not long after the news story aired. Be so careful with contractors, folks. Seriously, in this day and age where there's just so many different Yelp reviews and all that kind of stuff, first off, maybe glance at the 5 stars, but don't stay with them too long. And glance at the 1 stars, but sometimes they're just, some real buttholes in there. But look for the 2s, the 3s, maybe even the 4s. Really, really do your research, because there are some really scuzzy contractors out there who will do everything to make your life miserable. But if you get the right contractor, God, they're nice. My partner and I had some contractors out to do some roof work. They're helping us with other stuff. They have been so good about stuff. It's ridiculous. The amount that they've helped us and gone above and beyond without asking for anything more is just out of this world. And hey, by the way, contractors out there, when you do that, when you actually do a great job and don't try and skimp and rip people off, they just keep coming back to you because they know you're a good contractor and they tell their friends about them. That's how you succeed. Story 4. Husband bought a ring from a jewelry store. They called and said it was priced wrong and we have to return it. My husband purchased a ring from a local jewelry store that is going out of business. They brought in an outside company to help them with their going out of business sale. This company brought in their own inventory. All of this was unknown to us prior to this issue. My husband purchased a ring for me for $2,000. The ring didn't have a price tag on it in the store. He took it to the register to inquire about the price. The owner of the store priced it to him for $2,000. He paid for it in cash. About a week later, the owner called him and said he made a mistake in pricing. The ring was actually $10,000, and we have to either return the ring or pay the additional $8,000. He's already given me the ring as a gift, and I very much want to keep it, but I can't pay $8,000 extra dollars. Are we legally required to return the ring even though we paid for it in cash at the price the owner told us to pay? I'm not sure if the owner's story is even true or if he's trying to scam us out of more money. We asked to see the jewelry company's appraisal of the ring to show what it's worth, and they said they don't have it. In Tennessee, if that matters. Edit, I wasn't clear in the first post. The ring was just sitting out. A salesman from the company brought in to assist with the sale, took it out of the case, and let me try it on. I then walked off with our son so my husband could talk to him about the price because there was no tag on the ring. The salesman and my husband walked the ring to the register where he went and got the owner of the store to complete the purchase. Regarding the owner getting our number, we live in a very small town. I'm talking about Friday Night Lights, a rural farm town. You can get anyone's number in 5 minutes if you know their name. This business is on our town square and my husband has a business there as well. His number is pretty public due to the business he's in. We took it to another jewelry store in a neighboring town. He said he would need a GIA number to complete an appraisal, but did briefly check it out and estimated the center stone to be worth $5,000 to $15,000 depending on the GIA certification. I mean, I'm not an expert in this kind of stuff at all. I kind of feel like if someone sells you something at a price, and then it's like, wait, that was the wrong price. That's kind of the store's fault. Like, I mean, morally, could you be like, oh, we got this for way less. This is costing them money. We'll bring it back. Sure. Like, you could, but I don't necessarily feel like you have to, unless, of course, the law says you do. I don't know. Like, it's weird. And also, stores and stuff doing, like, going out of business sales and all this kind of stuff. Like, have rules for employees. Like, don't just sell stuff on a whim and be like, $2,000. It's not a garage sale. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.